Great. Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Vectra AI podcast. We've done a few of these in the past, these threat briefings. We've done on Scattered Spider, we've done one on Midnight Blizzard, hybrid attacks, and now we're introducing one on BlackBasta. And I wanted to bring in Kostya, one of our security researchers who has been digging into this attack group quite a bit, and I'm going to let him kind of drive this podcast for us. So um, hopefully we can get some good banter going. But Kostya, over to you.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Kostya Vasilkov. As you mentioned, I'm a security researcher here in Vectra AI. My professional background includes threat research, malware analysis and reversing, and some security engineering. So the agenda for today is we're going to talk about BlackBasta APT group. Someone told me that because of my accent, it sounds like I'm saying blockbuster. So it's not blockbuster. We're focusing on BlackBasta. Okay, so we'll talk a bit about who they are. We'll mainly focus on what and how they do. And in the end, I'll share my thoughts on how organization can be more prepared for such attacks. So what is BlackBasta? As I mentioned, BlackBasta is a cyber criminal group that works in the ransom as a service model. This model has like two main group categories: affiliates and providers. And for the sake of the explanation, I will simplify it a bit. Um, Providers are those who responsible to develop the framework and all the ransomware tools. And the affiliates are those who actually run the ransom operation. They infect the victim, they run the negotiation, etc. And BlackBasta is the provider, which means they develop all the tools. But what makes them a bit special is that they are a closed group. They are not selling their tools, and they're searching for affiliates by themselves. An affiliate can't approach them. BlackBasta looking for affiliates by themselves and choosing them very carefully. An incident related to BlackBasta was first seen in the wild in April 2022. They operate in a double extortion model, which means they not only encrypt your data and make it inaccessible, they also exfiltrate the data and threat organization to leak it to the internet. We've seen BlackBasta incidents in many regions, but more than 60% of these incidents happened in the US. They mostly are focusing on and operating and targeting organization within the critical infrastructure sector, but with a significant focus on healthcare and hospitals. And now that I'm thinking about it, it's actually a triple extortion model. I mean, imagine to yourself the CISO in this bridge hospital. You know, first he get a heart attack from the attack, the ransom attack, and then the hospital can't treat him because all the devices are basically disabled by the ransom attack. So of course I'm kidding, but man, attacking and targeting hospitals, it just show how nasty those criminals are. And the last item, because of similar TTPs and IOCs, there are many speculation that the people behind BlackBasta are related, or even the same people behind other cybercriminal groups such as Fin7 and Conti, and all those groups are from a Russian-speaking origin. Okay, so as a researcher, it always more interesting to me to know how they operate and not who they are. So let's focus on their modus operandi, TTPs. You know, select your preferred term. This is basically a high-level overview of BlackBasta's full attack life cycle. but I would like to focus on each step separately. So let's clear the graph. And now grab your snorkel and let's dive deeper. So for initial access, in most cases, BlackBasta uses advanced social engineering techniques and sending tailor-made spear phishing emails. Spear phishing emails are targeted for a specific person within the organization, opposed to regular phishing, which is just spread to the mass. There are also evidence of incidents where BlackBasta exploited a known vulnerability in remote desktop software to get the initial access. If you want to read more about this specific vulnerability, you have it on the screen. Just search for this ID and you will find it. Also, sometimes they just buy stolen credentials from initial access brokers. Okay, so in the phishing email, they attach a malicious document. Well, not a malicious document, but a password-protected zip file with a document inside. They do it to bypass preliminary protections. And then the victim extracts the document from the zip file, open the document, enable macros, and in those macros, there are script which downloads and executes a Qbot malware. Qbot is a Trojan. They use it to establish a backdoor into the organizations and as a remote access vector to deliver additional malicious payloads. So they go back and forth with a Qbot C2 server, running some commands, getting some responses back, and basically getting familiar with the machine then they landed on. And when they're ready, they download and execute Cobalt Strike. Cobalt Strike is a commercial tool which used by red teams to simulate adversaries, but criminals use it for their own benefit as an attacking tool. Um, so again, in that stage, they go back and forth, this time with Cobalt Strike C2 server, and they leverage it for the next steps at the next step, which is reconnaissance. During that step, they scan the network for available IPs, they scan for open ports, basically getting familiar with the organizations. They're getting familiar with the network topology, the available devices, the vulnerability that exists on software and hardware, and thinking of ways to move laterally. Speaking of lateral movement, this is the next step. Um, then they start to move laterally, basically jumping from node to node and looking for the crown jewels where the critical data resides. Both the recon and the lateral movement done with many different tools, but to be honest, nothing special here. Mimikatz, PSExec, PowerShell, etc., the regular tools. And when they find the critical data, they start to exfiltrate all the data to external storages. And after they're done exfiltrating the data, they are ready for the main event. Hooray! Which executing the actual ransomware executable. When they run the executable, it first deletes all the shadow copies and local data backups, and then it encrypts all the relevant files. Um, when it finishes to encrypt a file, it changes its extension to BASTA to Basta. By the way, there is a very famous and popular Russian rapper which goes by the name Basta. So I don't know. Maybe they love his music. I don't know. After the whole encryption process is done, when all the files have been encrypted, they display the ransom note with further instruction. And I'm not sure if you noticed, but they even spend the time and effort to create a special icon and associate it with the Basta file extension. So encrypted files will have their own special icon. And as you can see, they even switched colors between versions. I mean, they their UI department must be very devoted.
Well,
So
no one's accused them of not being creative, right?
yeah, yeah, that's true. They're very creative. And so a quick summary here. Uh, if all the files on your computer suddenly change to this icon, I'm sorry to bring you the bad news, but most probably you're going to have a long day, or it's a good office prank. Not that I'm trying to give anyone ideas, but I think it's a decent prank. Okay, so the last step is the actual extortion. Um, on their Tor website, they have two pages. On the left, which says chat BlackBasta, is the page which is used for the negotiation, for the communication between the attacker and the victim, and they even put more pressure on you and displaying you a countdown timer, which is basically the time left for you to pay them. And on the right, it's sometimes called Black Basta News, sometimes it's called Black Basta Blog. Um, they publish the name and the data of breach organizations which are not willing to pay.
Hmm.
So that completes the whole Black Basta attack life cycle. Obviously, we can go much deeper in each step, but I think it's good enough for a thread briefing. So, um, in terms of Vectra AI and this attack, um, my job at Vectra is more focused on the NDR side of the house. So I highlighted in green what steps Vectra's NDR product will detect natively. And as you can see, Vectra will detect the attack long before the actual encryption will take place. Um, Here you can see the full view of BlackBuster's TTPs over MITRE attack framework. And as you can see, all those techniques which are colored in green will be detected by Vectra, and all those techniques which are colored in gray, uh, it's techniques which are more related to the endpoint itself. And 73% of the techniques are covered, and I think that's a great coverage. Okay.
Kostya, is there? Do you have a sense for the speed at which they operate through the kill chain, through their process? Does it vary? Is there any kind of indication of that?
So we have evidence of previous incidents and breaches, and it really depends on the organization they are targeting. You know, if the organization is well segmented and more hard to laterally move there, it
Hmm.
will take them some time. It
Right.
can take even days, but sometimes it's very fast because as soon they have initial access to organization, they don't have any strong protections, and they move quickly.
Yeah. Yep.
So what can be done in terms of mitigation? um, First and foremost, I always say it, uh, the weakest link almost always is the human factor. You can have dozens of security controls. You can spend millions on it. But if an employee is abused by a hacker, by a criminal, and execute a malware, all those controls are bypassed, you know? And employees abused by hackers, not because they are dumb. Well, maybe some of them are, but no, I'm kidding. You need to understand something about social engineering. It is very, very complex technique which takes advantage of human psychology and exploit natural emotions such as fear, uncertainty, curiosity, helpfulness in order to make those employees do something bad while they truly believe they're doing something good.
Mhm.
And training and awareness sessions will teach those employees to identify such social engineering attempts and basically avoid them. Response plan. As we all have a plan for a building evacuation in case of fire, uh, and we even have fire drills. Organizations need to have some kind of a plan for a ransom incident. So when it occurs, or if it occurs, they would have like a plan and they could respond quickly and precisely, and it will save them a lot of time and a lot of money. Um, Update and patch. Again, it is very important to run the latest version and install patches in a timely manner. Uh, don't forget, when a patch is released, the bad guys also see it, and they will most probably reverse the patch to understand the vulnerability and exploit it, because the criminals understand that organizations, it takes them time to update and patch.
Yeah.
So, and as a reminder, BlackBasta used an exploited software for initial access. So it is very important. I think it's obvious, but organization need to run backups of critical data regularly and isolate the backup as much as possible, because if you have a backup and it was also encrypted, it's not going to help you.
Yeah.
And the last one, network segmentation and hygiene. Organizations should have well-segmented network, because we mentioned it before. It makes the lateral movement much harder. You don't want all the endpoints be accessible by all the endpoints. It doesn't make sense. And with regards to hygiene, you should be familiar with your network. You should know your assets. Uh, if you have a device which no longer used and connected to the network, you should disconnect it. You shouldn't use default credentials and default passwords. Uh, and you should have procedures in place which will make you go through your network policies and update them regularly. For example, if an open port is no longer needed, it should be closed.
Yeah.
And that's it from my side.
No, that was fantastic. I think, like you said, we can dive in deeper into, a lot of different areas, and maybe we should do that in the future. Kostya, with bring you back and let's dive specifically into this, right? It'd be interesting to see, and hear back and from the audience and in the comments or whatnot. We get a ton of feedback on these podcasts. So, where do we want to dive in deeper? One thing is obviously, is three takeaways that I got from this is like um identifying it early is key, right?
Yeah,
um understanding how they operate obviously is key, but identifying it early is key, but then also having detections across the whole chain, right? So I'm not going to get into a product pitch right now, but we'll this was helpful in terms of framing it and understanding the role that NDR can play in this. We've often talked about, identity-based attacks and in the fact that, attackers love identities and they love networks. But they two things that they need to be successful, and this is another example of that, in terms of taking over an identity, seizing, getting onto the network, and then doing their thing. So appreciate it. This was another fantastic threat briefing from our super smart security researchers and product leaders and product team members. If the listeners, if you haven't tuned into the other ones, we've got, like I said at the beginning, we've got a few of these out there, and these continue to come as we learn. We will share, right, openly, candidly, what we hear, what we see in the form of these threat briefings. And one thing to note is is the number of, I think we're up to like 15 or 16 episodes now, and we're also on Spotify. Wow, we are out there. All these are on YouTube, but now we're on the Vectra AI podcast is also on Spotify. So
Wow.
again,
So next
we
time you
are.
need to contact my agent. Sorry.
I shouldn't have said we'll have you back. I shouldn't have made that commitment. This was a freebie. He gave us this one free. But hey, thanks again, Katya. I really appreciate it. And again, thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you next
Thank
time.
you.